Hello and welcome to the next in these video blogs of the 4Ps.org. Really asking the question around our Bible verse that kind of inspired us to set up the 4Ps. Jeremiah 29:7, seek the peace and prosperity of places. Pray to the Lord for it, for if they prosper, you too will prosper. So today we've got some amazing people. Tommy over in Northern Ireland and Catherine in Aylesbury, as well as myself, Paul here in Halifax, who are going to talk about this. And we're all people of action, people who believe in getting out there and getting on and changing communities, encouraging others to change communities, and really seeking to be people that demonstrate the kingdom of God as a reality for the places where we are and beyond. Some of us working nationally and internationally as well. So I'll ask Tommy to say a quick hello and Catherine to say a quick hello, and then Catherine's going to share some stuff that she's made notes. So it's really impressive, making notes. So Tommy, who are you, Tommy?
I can assure you I have no notes, Paul, but who am I? I'm still trying to work that out, as are most people who know me, Paul, but I'm a leadership advisor based in Northern Ireland, but travelling internationally when there's no coronavirus. I work largely with global Christian ministries and also with local ministries here, supporting them in leadership development and helping them to become more active in their communities and cities.
Excellent. And Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine. I have two hats. One, I'm the operations manager of Aylesbury Town Chaplaincy, which has volunteers, street angels and chaplains usually out on the streets in Aylesbury, and I also work for our local housing trust as a business intelligence officer. Wow,
that sounds impressive. Business intelligence officer.
I know, I love that title. So I'm going to talk a bit about what how we support our town and how I think churches and people should support their local communities. I was really privileged to help set up Aylesbury Town Chaplaincy. So 10 years ago now, we started thinking about what chaplaincy would look like in Aylesbury. And we had an idea, but we didn't want the church to impose that on the town. We wanted to be in partnership and see what the town thought of the idea. So the first few months was visiting local police, local councillors, local agencies, businesses, and seeing what they thought of our idea. And they were really, really positive meetings. They couldn't wait for a church-led activity to come and bless the town. In fact, some of those early conversations were more positive than some of the churches, I'm sad to say, who were thinking it was something that wasn't needed, but it clearly was. I won't say any more about that. So as part of that, it just living in a town I've lived here for 10 years at that point, and being in church, you don't really know how a town works behind the scenes. You don't know how, you've got a local council, but you don't really know what they do. You might have heard of a town centre manager, but you don't realise that there's this great group of people trying to make the town thrive and working together, all these different agencies, charities, businesses, council officials, police. They want the town to thrive. And we were invited to join in with that. And I think sometimes we sit in our churches and think we have to have the whole solution, and we have to put on an event or put on a ministry, and it will only work if the church does it, and nobody else is interested in kindness and working with you. But in this role, I've got the real insight that they do want you to join in, and they've got the same heart for the town. Looking at my notes, sorry. So what does prosperity of the town mean? That was sort of the question, and I look at it as something about making the town thrive, and there's obviously money's important, people need to earn a living, but it's businesses thriving, there's jobs for people and opportunities and culture and events and community and fun, and it's thriving in all those ways. So something we've always do when we're talking about chaplaincy, because some of the things, as Street Angels in particular deal with, it's people who have had too much to drink, or there's, tensions in the town. Doesn't happen often, but late at night. But not to talk our town down, to look at all the positives and share those positives. And when someone's saying, oh, why don't the council do this? Recently, some of the benches were taken away in the town because street drinkers had been sat there, and the local shopkeepers, that was putting off people going into the shops. This is before lockdown, different world it seems now. But people were, some of our chaplains were saying it's not fair on those people that use those benches. And we have to try and explain everybody's got to work together. And it wasn't a decision that was taken lightly. They didn't just have one person complain and they took the benches away. They tried to work with everybody involved for a long time. We also try and encourage our church people to join in with things. We've got an amazing series of events normally through the year in our town. We have a Roald Dahl, the author, lived in Buckinghamshire, so not far from here. So for years and years, the town had a Roald Dahl festival, and that's morphed into the Whiz Fizz Festival of Children's Literature. And to make the buzz, there's a limited budget for it, but they want organisations to join in. So, and they want local people to volunteer as stewards. And I've volunteered, and we have this lovely job at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, blowing up hundreds of balloons and then putting them out all around the town to make the town look amazing that day. And we're trying to encourage our churches to join in with those sort of things and not think, oh, I can't because it's not a church thing. Sadly, my favourite event of the year, Santa's Parade, it's always on a Sunday morning, and there's a bit of we'll sit in our church on a Sunday morning. Christmas isn't about Santa, but I've been a steward at that event. And one year they had there's all sorts of random things in the parade, school groups, dance schools, stilt walkers, but leading the parade were some real camels and their handlers dressed as the wise men. And that wasn't a church thing. The town had decided that was something that would be in the parade. So one of our local churches volunteered to join in another year, and they have been in the parade dressed as the Nativity. Someone's lent them a donkey. There's Mary and Joseph, kings, shepherds, and that's been welcomed. And it's a small thing, and you might say, well, it looks a bit weird. Then there's Santa and there's this, but it's joining in and blessing the town. So that's it. And about encouraging and supporting those people that put on those events with words or with action, and being welcome to join in with those things.
Excellent. I think there's a lot of really good keys there. Don't just sit in our church buildings expecting people to come to our activity, but actually go and join in with the town, the city, the place, whatever, seeking to be a blessing to the town. And actually working alongside those who are bringing change, because they need help. It's a lonely world out there who's trying to change a town and trying to bring improvement, and all the business improvement districts and all of that. Go and sit and chat with them and connect with them in whatever way you can.
I think Catherine, you make a great point about the vast majority, probably in the church, don't actually realise what's really happening in their towns and cities. That's happening. People who are well-intended, people who have good intentions and hopes and aspirations for their cities, but because the church has been very much insular, it hasn't realised that was going on. And I have a little saying, just that if you want the city to be part of the church must first become part of the city. And so I think it's very important that we get our churches involved in as many activities, community, social, economic, within the city and bring that voice of wisdom that we can bring to those environments, and believe that as we engage with city officials and councils, and that we can bring something that perhaps is missing, and perhaps that's part of the difficulty, is that the church has been missing, and so the time for the church to be present is now.
I mean, there is a lot of good stuff of, you know, food banks and helping the homeless and that sort of work. But also sometimes I always think our churches we could encourage people who help run a scout group, or help with. There's an amazing organisation in Aylesbury called Aylesbury Wombles, and they go once or twice a week. They go to an area and they pick rubbish, and that, you know, I know churches have done that sort of thing, but why not church people join in? You meet non-Christians that way, and you're part of that community. Yeah. It's just there's all sorts of stuff that goes on. We don't have to start it from scratch.
One thing I did pick up on was don't talk a town down. You know, and I think we often get into that kind of critical. It's you know, this problem and that problem and the other problem. And actually, we focus so much on the negative that we don't look at the positives. And I know from going on local Facebook groups and pages, you know, it's very easy to get into that pattern of talking down a place, and it's everything's wrong and they're not doing this right and I would do it this way, all of that. But as a church, we should be the ones that are celebrating success and celebrating good news stories, and celebrating the things that bring in, you know, that help a town prosper, from health to economy to whatever else, you know, we look at prosperity as. So yeah, I think that's a great kind of don't talk a town down. And if the town is down, then do something about it. Get on and do something about it. Yeah. Excellent. Talking of talking things up and supporting and encouraging, Tommy's set up this thing called the Encouragers Network. Do you want to share a little bit about that, Tommy?
I would say, Paul, it's a very simplistic idea.
Like simplistic.
Yeah, I'm very simply minded, I think. But I was really struck by the verse in 1 Thessalonians 5. It talks about therefore build each other up and encourage one another. And so I think the church has a mandate to be encouragers. But if we're really going to fulfill that mandate intentionally, then we're going to have to take proactive steps to make that happen. Mm-hmm. I'm a bit of a mathematical economic person from my early background, and I think figures in the sense of, and so the thought occurred to me, if we had 10 people in a town who would intentionally release a message of encouragement each day, either on their social media, on their text, on an email, wherever it might be, those 10 people would release 3,650 words of encouragement into their town each year. Now, that multiplied, then it obviously becomes much more. And a very simple way of looking at it is, if we had 100 towns and cities with 10 encouragers each, that's 1,000 people sending a message each day. That becomes 365,000 messages of encouragement going out each year. That's transformational in itself. And so we're to transform towns and cities. There's something we can do very simply without even leaving our house. We can do it in lockdown. We can send a message of encouragement. And that might be to a fellow leader. It might be to someone who is a Christian, but it might equally be to a businessman down the street who's struggling with his business. It might be to that scout group leader that Catherine talked about, who's just struggling to get volunteers and struggling with the issues young people face. So if we can do something in these days to release a wave of encouragement into towns and cities, just to say to people, keep going. We're thinking about you. We support you. We're praying for you. And just that simplistic word of encouragement, as the Bible has mandated us to do, if we're intentional about that, we can begin to see people and cities and towns turned around just through releasing motivational words of encouragement. Doesn't need to be overly spiritual, doesn't need to be heavy duty. It simply needs to be an encouragement to the person who receives it. I've been doing this every day for probably 10 years. Someone once said, a pastor in Sheffield once said his objective in the morning was to send out a word of encouragement on social media before I did. But the reality is, it's my life. I'm an encourager. That's who I am. And I think God has just been speaking about intentionally towns and cities across the UK, Ireland, and beyond, beginning to set up encourager networks in your local town that can maybe be they might span into something else, but it's simply a group of like-minded people who will commit to purposefully sending out one message of encouragement each day throughout the year. It can be transformational. It doesn't need to be difficult, and it can cost nothing. So it's a free method of releasing a new wave of support into your town and city.
Excellent. And I guess that can be done as well as you're at the supermarket checkout, or wandering around a shop and the shopkeeper asking if you're all right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Getting coffee and chatting to the person behind you in the queue. You know?
Right now, Paul, I'm thinking about getting a face mask. It simply says, "We believe in you," across the face mask, and that's a word of encouragement being released when you're wearing your face mask.
Absolutely. So maybe we should sell those as the 4Ps.
An idea, brand it, Paul, and sell it. £10 to the 4Ps.
That sounds good. Yeah, copyright the 4P now. So how do we think? I mean, our towns and cities and places are going to look totally different in the years, months, decades ahead. Catherine spoke there about Aylesbury and people that work in Aylesbury, and I guess that people are going to be less based in office space together and more working from home. How do we think that will impact places like coffee shops, sandwich shops, cafes, town centre, shops and other businesses? How does the church need to be proactive in bringing wisdom, I guess, into that whole situation? Any thoughts?
And I wonder, because Aylesbury, a lot of people commute into London to work normally. So I wonder if they won't do that and they'll be more in the town. It's not entirely a dormitory town for London, but it's sort of probably it's about an hour into Marylebone from Aylesbury. So I did it for a year. You can do it, but if the offices in central London are not going to be used, it might actually mean that there are more people about in the town. But equally, there are big offices. It's not a huge office. I normally work in an office in the town centre, and I haven't been for the past, I can't think how long, since whenever it was, March.
Lifetime of lockdown.
Something was the last time I was in the office. Yeah.
What about Northern Ireland? Because I guess
my observations are Northern Ireland, but wider, I suppose. I think commuting is going to decrease. I think retail will struggle in town centres because of the increased presence of online retail, and I think COVID has driven people to utilise online retail a lot more, and so I think the level of retail space in town centres 10 years from now will be much less than what it is currently. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got to see town and city centres that are becoming probably more residential than they have been, as residential property replaces retail property. So we're going to have this more of a mixed environment rather than a purposeful retail environment. So I think that will certainly change the dynamic even of things like nighttime economy, where the nighttime economy will suddenly be finding itself still located in a retail district, but that retail district becoming repurposed with more residential. That may cause some tension. But I do think, I'm kind of with Catherine on this, Paul, that I think coffee culture is here to stay. And I think people working from home get to the stage that I did this morning where you just think, I just want out of the house, and you go and sit with a laptop in a coffee shop and you work from the coffee shop. So I think there's opportunities for engaging with people and encouraging people as you pass them in the coffee shop or if you see them out and about that we didn't previously have. One our initiative some friends are currently piloting in England. Paul, you probably know these folks. They're piloting a concept called Business Friends Club, BFC, which is about town and city centre church spaces been repurposed as basically internet cafes or shared working spaces. So where people can drop in one morning a week perhaps and just use a more businessy type environment, but in a church building, and have good coffee available free of charge, but it creates another use for church property. So there's lots of people beginning to be innovative about how to utilise town and city centre buildings. The fabric of the city centres isn't going to change in terms of the buildings, but the purpose is going to change. And so I think we as leaders in community, church and civic life need to be a little bit more innovative in terms of how we repurpose what we do in those spaces.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I think we've covered a lot there between the three of us. So anything else to add, or shall we?
No, I would just say keep encouraging people.
Keep encouraging,
Yeah.
keep believing and talking up your towns and cities and places and villages and wherever. And yeah, until next time, this is the 4ps.org. Do join the 4Ps Collaborative on Facebook. Goodbye and God bless.
Bye.